Listen to what happens when a conservative is confronted by the fact that Donald Trump raised his taxes and building a wall is not going to solve the so-called illegal worker problem in the United States. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. David in Possum Kingdom Lake, Texas. Wow, what a name for a town. Hey, David, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I've been wondering for a long time why nobody's brought up this thing, so I finally decided I had to do it. Trump declared a fake national emergency so he could steal money from the Defense Department to build his border wall, right?
Right, all 3 miles of it, yep.
Yeah, enough to lie about it anyway. So now that we have a real national emergency, couldn't Biden declare a national emergency and take money from the Defense Department to pay to the medical people and the state governments and the people in general?
That's a really good question, David. It makes sense, although keep in mind, Trump is being sued by multiple parties right now about that transfer of funds, that $5 billion that he pulled out of the Pentagon budget. That was the money that was going to be used. That money was allocated, and it was going to be used to upgrade military housing.
I know all that. Obviously, it needs to come from more wasted money that the Defense Department has that they shouldn't have anyway.
Right. Take it out of the F-35 budget.
Yeah, for example. It could also come from FEMA, and they probably don't have that much money, but he could certainly use all of that.
Right now. Yeah. That's a real good question, David. Yeah, and I think, we're just going to have to keep an eye on what happens. At the moment, and this was probably my big question for the day for Congressman Pocan, is there any way for the average person to make their opinions known to the Biden transition team? And his answer was, as far as I know, basically social media is it, because these people don't have official websites yet. They don't have phone numbers you can call them on, all that kind of stuff. So it's probably worth tossing out into that. Great question, David. I'm sorry I don't have a clear answer for you, but it's something we should all keep on our radar screen. Keep thinking. Michael in Reading, Pennsylvania. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I have a question for you. Maybe you can help me.
Sure.
Trump, he's fired some pretty great career people over the past couple of years, and the one I wanted to specifically talk about was Andrew McCabe. He got fired, I think it was 1 day short of his pension, and is it possible for Biden to rehire him for a day or two and then requalify him for his pension?
It would depend on the civil service laws, because that's the system under which he qualifies for the pension. And I don't know the answer to that question. I would guess, if the answer to the question is yes, that the Biden administration would do that or do something like that. Because
I would hope so.
Andrew McCabe has been a good guy, but it's also entirely possible. He's but he's still being investigated too, Andrew McCabe and Jim Comey and Robert Mueller and all these guys are being investigated by John Durham, and Bill Barr just flipped him over from being a prosecutor, federal prosecutor, to being a special counsel, so that his term does not expire at the end of the year. So Biden is going to inherit an investigation into Biden. It's investigating the Obama-Biden administration. So it's going to get pretty bizarre. Michael, thank you for the call. It's good to hear from you. We'll be right back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Our video for the day are for Thom Hartmann Program supporters. It's available over at thomhartmann.com. Is talking about how the Donald Trump presidency has been fundamentally destructive, not just to the United States, not just to our political norms, not just to our body politic, not just to the institutions of the presidency and our governance in general. His disrespect of judges, his disrespect of Congress, his pushing the boundaries of what the Article 2, an Article 2 office can do. But it's also destructive around the world because of the things that he's not doing, that aren't getting attended to. We've got major parts of the world that are spiraling into chaos that could, several of them could trigger World War III. And instead, he's sitting there live tweeting Fox News, literally every morning and every evening. Check it out. It's available over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. Mike in Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, Mike, it says you disagree with me, so you go right to the front of the line. What's on your mind?
Okay. Yeah, I just have concerns about an economy run by Biden and Kamala Harris, where they're going to be increasing taxes on people, gas prices. I mean, it's hard just to make ends meet right now. And unfortunately, I'm not a bartender or a waiter or a musician playing live concerts with COVID. And the policies of Democrats have never really, in general, helped the paycheck of people that are working and not relying on a government check or something like this. And I think there's some real potential catastrophic consequences. Trump might be a jackass in his actions, but we need a secure border. We can't take care of the poor people we have in this country already, and we want to just open a border up to more people.
Mike, let's stay with one topic at a time here. I'd be glad to walk through you with them. So first of all, raising taxes. You do realize that Donald Trump raised taxes on people making less than $70,000 a year. That tax increase kicks in next year, 2021, and every year until 2029 raises the taxes on working people in order to pay for the tax cut, that $1.5 trillion tax cut on billionaires, number one. Number two, I'm just a little baffled by this. The 4 decades in the United States when we had the strongest economy in the world and the strongest economy in American history, the decade of the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, and the 1970s, all of them averaging greater than 3% annual GDP growth per decade. Huge growth. We built this country. We built the Eisenhower highway system. We built new schools. I'm old enough to remember. I went to a brand new school in 1956 when I went to first grade. We did all that. When I went to school, Eisenhower was president, and the top tax rate was 91%. Now, when Nixon came into office, Lyndon Johnson, 2 years before, had lowered that from 91% to 74%. But it was 74% in 1981 when Ronald Reagan came into office. So that entire 4-decade, 40-year period, millionaires, billionaires, and basically anybody making over $300 million a year, or maybe $500,000 a year, depending on the year, it changed from year to year, we're paying a maximum tax rate of 74 to 91%. And the country was doing great, and the middle class was doing great, and we had enough money to build this country. Reagan drops it down to 25%, and what do? We stop rebuilding our roads, we stop rebuilding our bridges, we stop building new hospitals, we stop building new schools, we defund our schools, our classroom size goes from an average of 20 kids before that to around 30 or 40 now. All these crises happen, and you're saying, and Joe Biden has said anybody who earns over $400,000 a year is not going to see a tax increase during my presidency, period. But I am going after the rich people. And you're saying that for some reason that's a bad idea?
That's what he says. Okay, but the fact is, if you have a
the Republicans raise taxes on average working people. Ronald Reagan doubled the FICA tax. Reagan raised taxes over 30 times on average working people and massively cut taxes on billionaires and millionaires. And then George W. Bush did the same thing. And then, well, it's true. I'll look it up.
I mean, that's BS. The rich in this country have accountants and lawyers that make rules for themselves to keep their wealth. It's been that way forever. I wish we could get rid of it.
The way they make those rules for themselves is by buying off legislators. And right now, the party that is entirely owned by the billionaires is the Republican Party. The Democratic Party is only about half owned by the billionaires.
Lie. That's the distortion of the truth, sir.
Name one Republican legislator. Okay, Mike, hang on just a second. Bernie Sanders proudly says, I take no money from corporations. So does Elizabeth Warren. So do, the 100 members of the Progressive Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. Please name for me one elected Republican official in either the House or the Senate who has proclaimed that he will not take money from billionaires or from corporations. He only takes money from his constituents and average citizens. Name that person.
Tim Scott.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. Tim Scott, go to OpenSecrets.org and look it up. Tim Scott is heavily funded by big corporations. He's a Republican. Just because he's black doesn't mean that he's a progressive. He's a Republican. Your thing about the border then, Mike, let's talk about that. Reagan, prior to 1986 and Reagan's immigration reform, it was a crime to hire somebody who's not in this country legally, somebody who's not a citizen and has no legal right to be in this country. Reagan ended that and stopped enforcement of that law. And thus, employers started running ads in Mexican magazines saying, come on up here to Iowa and work in our meat packing plant so that we can break the union and destroy the wages in this area. And from 1985, when Reagan did that, when meat packers were making $40, $50 an hour in today's money, so much so that the Packers Union in Wisconsin started a football team called the Packers. So why not just go back to saying we're going to put the employers in jail? This was Mitt Romney's idea, for God's sake. He said people will self-deport when there's no work. Why not do that, Mike? You got 10 seconds.
I agree with that totally. That's BS about
and you won't need a wall then. Yeah, you won't need a wall because who's going to come if there's no job?